Hello all, I am Shushrut, Business Analyst and Scrum Master, Real-Time Trainer. In today's video, we'll go over the sprint cycle in Agile. So sprint cycle in Agile video is for both Business Analyst and Scrum Masters. So people who are doing both these roles or people who want to do both these roles can get a lot of information out of this video. So please do watch till the end. Please do hit the like and subscribe button. Let's go to the training.
My one doubt was there how these artifacts are defined from this. See, in types of backlog, we studied this product backlog, sprint backlog, and release backlog, right?
Correct.
And when going through this artifacts of Agile, same thing was there: product backlog, sprint backlog. So I was confused.
So, what is Agile? Agile manifesto artifacts in Agile. Yeah, I just meant there is the product backlog, there is the release backlog, sprint backlog, meaning instead of BRD, system requirement document, etc., we have all these things in place for requirement where it's captured in Epic and user story format. This is how it will be captured: Epic, feature, user story, tasks, and subtasks. So, this is how the requirements will be captured. This is how it
That
will
I
be
understand. Yes. So these artifacts are nothing but, in the types of backlog, the same was there: product, print, backlog. And in artifacts also the same terminology was used. So that is why I was confused. Again, this product release backlog. Yeah.
Yeah, I just meant instead of artifacts, we have these backlogs. This is what I mean.
Instead of
Artifacts, we are business requirement, document, system requirement.
Correct.
That we have all these backlogs as artifacts. Instead, we don't
This is
have
more
these
like
documents,
same,
right?
na, that topic and this artifacts and agile and types of backlog. Same it is.
No, not like, yeah, it's same only. But what I meant was we have business requirement document artifact. We have system requirement document artifact in Agile, right? So I just meant instead of that in Agile, the conversion will be product backlog, release backlog, sprint and increment back. That's what I meant.
Okay. Understood now.
So, but this is how the distribution will be. We also covered this, right? Epic, feature, user story, tasks, and tasks. So this will all have all the technical details. This will be created by the developers and testers. So this one BA or product manager, this one BA or product manager. This is how it will be divided. And and again, this is theory, right? In my organization that I'm working for a finance client. I don't want to confuse you, but in the place of Epic, feature is coming. In the place of feature, Epic is coming. So feature is a larger.
Okay.
For some reason, they have used it that way. But like I said, right, every organization, they'll use it their own way. So that is one example of what's happening in my organization. Okay. So now, today we will cover sprint cycle, right? So let's put everything together and create a sprint cycle. So this tool is getting better. In my organization, they also use this tool. It's called raw.io. And it's open source, but it's getting better and better. Okay. So first it will start with, when it comes to a sprint, the first one will be, first day it will start with sprint planning, right? So what we do in sprint planning?
We assign user story points to the...
We assign story points, assign tasks.
We calculate the velocity and capacity.
Calculate velocity, capacity. Who is in office, who is out of office, okay, for that sprint, even if it is one day, because it's going to affect the deliverables, right? Confirm the set of user stories that we are going to take up for the sprint. Okay, so these are all the activities that we do during sprint plan. Any questions?
No.
Next one is a series of meetings. So I'm just going to put arrow, right? So it's going to place it in here. So this will happen every day. So this is the daily. This happens every day. So this is starting on, let's say, on the 12th, sprint planning. Every day we will have dailies for the 2 weeks of that. So this is daily Scrum. This will happen every day. I don't know why this arrow broke, but I don't know why this is cut. Anyways, right? So this is daily Scrum. So now once the daily Scrum is over, as the daily Scrums are going on, something will happen, which is the backlog for the next sprints. For the refinements, the reason why I put refinements is because there are 10 business days or maybe 15 business days. And the backlog refinement session is set up on the fly, by the way. Meaning, it's not like, okay, on the first day of the sprint, just like there is sprint planning, we'll have backlog refinement. It is not like that. It is set up on the fly. Set up on the fly means, well, you can just say, Wednesday we'll have this meeting. I have some user stories. You'll go and say, I want the refinement session on Wednesday. You'll invite everybody as the BA and you'll explain your stories to them, right? So what do we do in backlog refinement session? So explain the requirements to developers and testers. And what else do we do? So this is one. What else do we do? During backlog refinement, any other tasks that we do?
I'm not sure.
Apart from this, we'll assign story points to the user stories in this meeting also. If the developers have any questions, not only developers and testers have any questions on the user stories, the business analyst will answer, right? So now this is the backlog refinement session. I'm just gonna, put it like this, right? This will happen on the fly. Next is sprint review. What do we do in sprint review? Any guess?
I mean, to business, we show whatever it is done.
Yeah. So demo the minimum
product to business.
viable product.
Potentially viable and minimum viable.
Yeah,
Or
minimum
that is
viable.
potentially shippable.
No, that
Sorry.
is for the release. That is
That
for
is
the release.
something, yeah, that is for the release.
So demo the minimum viable product to the
Business.
business. So what we have built in 2 or 3 week sprint will be demoed to the business.
And if there is any change, we need to.
Yeah, if there are change requests coming in, note it down. If there are bugs found, note it down. If there are any inputs, note it down. Any questions?
No.
And we have to work on, provided it is small, we have to work on it, right? And if everything looks good, what will they give?
Go ahead.
No, there is the term is definition of done. Everything is going good for a user story, meaning acceptance criteria is met. Then they say definition of done is met. So this is sprint review, backlog refinement, sprint planning. So next is, so sprint review, when does that happen? Last day of now let's say sprint is starting on the 12th. If it is a 2-week sprint, it's going to happen on the 20th. Next item is sprint retrospective, happens on the same day. So I'm just going to put it right next to each other or on top. I'm just going to put it on top because it happens on the same day after sprint review. So what do we cover in sprint retrospective? What we did well, what we did not do well, areas for any questions so far. And now retrospective meeting is a meeting where everybody must be open and everybody must be able to speak their mind.
Everybody means who?
Developers, testers, Scrum Master, BA. So who are all the entities for sprint retrospective? What and all staff will be there? Same sprint team only, right? Which is developers, testers, BA, Scrum Master for that team.
Yeah.
So if something is bothering them, they should be able to express it and we should give them the platform to express what they feel. So that should be done and nobody should be holding back their thoughts. So that is retrospective. So now sprint planning, backlog refinements, daily Scrum. So what happens during daily Scrum? What will we cover? What did we do yesterday? What are we planning to do today? Any blockers? As a Scrum Master, you should ask all these 3 questions. If there is a blocker, you should try to resolve it. If something is blocking the developer or tester, then you should be able to connect the developer or tester to the right person and resolve that. That is very important for you to do. Any questions? And if that resolution takes time, there is something called parking lot session. Let's say, for example, you have a question. As a developer, I am the Scrum Master. I'm not able to find because this is time blocked to 15 minutes daily. It is time blocked to 15 minutes, right? So everybody will just give the status and go, and daily Scrum will happen daily as the name says. Daily Scrum, or sometimes they call it daily stand-up status meet, right? So when it comes to parking lot session, now they are giving the status it should get done in 15 minutes. The daily Scrum must be completed in 10 minutes. If there is an elaborate answer, elaborate resolution, you want to have a detailed discussion, you will say, hey, we'll do a parking lot. We'll connect later. I'll set something up in your calendar, right? Let's not discuss it in a status. That is parking lot session. Any questions?
No.
Okay. So now the sprint planning, backlog refinement, daily Scrum, parking lot session, sprint retrospective, sprint review. Now, next one is the product owners. I'll put that below. This will happen, and this is another meeting, right? Just like daily Scrum. So I want to put product owner sync on top of it, or BA sync. So this is the status meeting for you to status meetings for the BA or the product owner to give the status over to the hierarchy. Who will facilitate this? Product manager, or who the PO is reporting to, and mostly the PO will be reporting to the product manager. So that way you are giving all the status of what you have completed, what is remaining, etc. So this is something that will be happening in PO sync. Scrum Masters also will be a part of the meeting, right? Sometimes I have seen even the Scrum Masters were there, but most the Scrum Master is also a part of the meeting. But once you walk into Agile environments, it will be really tight. They want everything will be going on in a fly. It might be toxic to a certain level. It's kind of fast paced. Any questions so far?
No.
So this will happen every day. Product owner sync or BA sync will happen every day. And another session that will happen is Scrum of Scrum. So this is the session where all the Scrum Masters will be there. And the Scrum Master will be giving the status to the Scrum Master manager. Now, product owner sync in when I was working for US Bank. So this happened every day. It's supposed to happen every day, by the way. And in my current project, it's happening once a week. I'm again working with a finance client. It's happening once a week. Scrum of Scrum is bi-week. I am the product owner in my current organization. So I'm not a part of the Scrum of Scrum, but so this will happen weekly or bi-weekly. Any questions?
No question.
So these are all the ceremonies in Agile that you should be aware of. And this is the sprint cycle. So when they talk to you during interviews, you should be able to talk about this smoothly from the back of your mind. You should be able to see all these things and the challenges you went through, etc. Right? You should be able to talk about all these things. Now, in this, right, how it works. So this is how the sprints are, right? The sprints and releases, how do they come into the picture together? So let's say this is sprint 1. Every sprint is 3 weeks or 2 weeks, right? Sprint 2. Sprint 3. So 9 weeks and 1 week of 2 weeks of testing. All the code. Of course, even in sprint 1, 2, and 3, they are testing. But finally, after everything is done, they'll do some 1 or 2 weeks of testing and deployment. So I'll just put test plus D and then release finally. Right? So this is how it will be. Sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, release 1. And after release 1, again, sprint 4 to 6, release 2. Let's say this is a 6 months project. This is how it's going to be. Any questions on how the sprints and releases are
No,
related?
this I don't have.
You're clear, right? Okay.
Yes, this is clear. One thing, if you could just help me when, this epics में features, then there is user stories and then task and subtask. So post collection of the requirements, we after the BA completes, who writes all this acceptance criteria for the user stories? BA only, right?
Yeah, obviously.
I think I was confused somewhere. See, after the requirements are taken and all, so then there is something we allocate, like we decide how many epics will be allocated to development team and or
Not like that. Not like that.
if you just can help me with to understand that.
This is how it will work, right? Let's say we are building a loan product. Okay. Let's say you are giving out a term loan. So what are the epics? Underwriting. Whether
Epic will be KYC, second epic will be
underwriting is whether the customer will qualify or not. That is underwriting. Next epic is what? Sales, right? How are we going to get the customers? Next epic is what? So you have to, for term loan, sales is already there. You might have to add a page for term loan because it's a new product that you are going to sell.
Okay.
Correct?
Okay.
Now what else is there?
Documentation.
Collection. They don't pay what?
Acha, okay. Collections. Yes.
Next what? Payment. How are we going to disburse the funds? How are we going to get it back? Right? Let's only keep it to 4. There might be more, but let's just keep it to 4.
Okay.
Now under this underwriting, you will have so many features. So this underwriting will be what? This epic, under that epic, that 10-line content will be there. We want to implement underwriting for term loan. This is a new product. We want it to be like this. That percentage should be this. They should have the credit score like this. Just some 10 lines will be there. That's it.
Yes.
Out of this, some 7 or 8 features will be.
Yeah.
Out of this, 24 to 25 user stories will come.
Yes.
Correct. And likewise, the same science applies to everything. So this whole thing might be documented by the BA only. Sometimes the product manager might help with epics, but this whole thing will be documented by the BA. What is feature notes? Nothing. We discussed what feature is. So what is a feature?
Is maybe that is breaking down the epics.
Yeah. So they
to
think of a
smaller
feature,
parts.
right?
Like for underwriting, we may say the features are one feature would be KYC, second feature would be CIBIL. What could be under underwriting, correct?
CIBIL score verification. So what does this feature do? Based on the
past loan history,
amount requested, past loan history, CIBIL score, the feature will recommend whether the customer will qualify
for the loan
or not. If no, what is the max loan can we give? So let's say 5 lakhs, they are applying for 5 lakhs. We can only give 2 lakhs. This is one feature. So under this feature, if you break it down, you will get 3 or 4 user stories. User story 1, CIBIL score chart. User story 2, verification.
Any other loans available with the...
Yeah, it could be that. Verification on whether the loan requested matches CIBIL score. Likewise, you will have 4 user stories for this one. Right? So this is how it's all broken down. Now this again, to finish all these things, it will take 2 years or 1 year at least. But the way
So
organization, yeah,
okay. So my question is that after the business gives the requirement, the BA will do the analysis. The BA will do the will that analysis phase what we have discussed will do, repeat the
correct,
same process. We will then the requirement session. We will document in waterfall. Used to document in BRD FRD, whereas in Agile we will document it in this product in Jira. Azure DevOps, right?
correct,
Azure DevOps TFS, we will document. After that, when the requirements are done, then we will see how many epics will be there in that particular requirement. And post that, we'll break into even more smaller like features and user
yeah.
story.
I mean, even before you go into a requirements meeting, you don't need a requirements meeting. The organization doesn't need a requirements meeting to figure out term loan will have underwriting segment, sales, collections, and payment. Common knowledge. So these titles are figured out. But how are we going to do the underwriting? The details are not figured. You see what I'm saying?
Correct. Understood. So
Yeah.
this epics so we will get from that business requirement. So from business requirement, it will be epics, it will be then features, then it will be user story.
Correct.
All this has to be done by the BS, and then this thing will be passed on to the development team to design
Correct.
and develop, right?
Correct.
Acceptance criteria, it is like similar as that we read in waterfall model use case, right? It is nothing that preconditions, the normal flow, the
No, that
alternate
and all is
flow.
not there. Acceptance criteria will be
Acceptance criteria in the sense it will be what all things
do we need for the definition of done to be met? What do we
Yeah.
need for the definition of done for the met? That set of 5 or 6 points is
what will that story will be completed, that is the acceptance criteria.
if the acceptance criteria is fulfilled, the
Specific
definition of
condition
done
that
is
must
met.
be met for the story to be completed.
Yeah, not completed. Yeah, that is one way of saying it. But professionally, you can say a definition of done is that story is completed
Definition
is
of
also
done.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. But nobody says definition of done is met. So you can say, yeah, the story is completed or a definition of done is met.
Okay, this is in the first thing we need to write it down and then we have to pass it on, right? So this acceptance criteria and everything that will the BA will get an understanding after while talking to the business team only, right?
Correct.
If supposedly, the knowledge will come from the business only.
Correct. Yeah, of
After
course.
like lot of meeting requirement and everything, then maybe the previous scenarios, cases. So we will have to write it down, the acceptance criteria.
Correct. Correct.
How is it different from the use case? This user story, I understand that there is one functional user story and there is one technical. In functional, like as a user, I want to show that. In technical, same as a system, I want to show that. How this user story is different from the use case? Use case we were writing
Use
the
case,
normal.
there is pre-condition, there is post-condition, there is success scenario, etc. In user story, all that will not be there. The skeletal structure is as a user, I want to show that. That's it. As a
Better understanding maybe for the development team and this is done, right?
look, use case, the way we are using use case, right? In my organization. Now, use case, now user story, we know how it is used. We give it to the developers, user story, they'll code and test user story acceptance criteria. The acceptance criteria will serve as some kind of a test, right? Now, when it comes to use case, the way we are using in my organization is, again, right? Generally, you can give it to the developers to code and test. That is something that we all know. As per theory also, we all know that that's what we do with the use case. We give it to the developers to code and test. But the success scenario, this pre-condition, post-condition success scenario, the way we are using in my organization is if we have to demo something to the business as to how that product is going to work, we use this use case concept and we'll walk them through it, put some screenshots and we'll walk them through. That is how we are using use case in our organization. So that is where use case might come into the picture. This is where it's coming into picture in my organization. Generally, they again, like we talked about, right? We just give it to the developers and testers to code it. But here they are giving in my organization, they are using user stories. They are giving that to developers and testers to code and test. But if we have to do a formal demo with high level business stakeholders, CRO and all is there in that. I was there. I was only presenting. Then we are using use case. We are reading through that use case just like I taught you guys, and then some screenshots and explaining how the product is working so that they are clear on what is going to be sent over to the development team for decoding and test. So that is how we are using use case.
And in the waterfall model, we used to write this system requirement document for the developers, right?
Yes.
After the BRD. So how the developers will understand like what we will give them. We will do this user story story. We will say these are the acceptance criteria. So how will the developers know the language? I mean,
sometimes the design after in the acceptance criteria, sometimes what we will do is the design will put it in the description section in Jira. Sometimes in that ticket only, in that Jira ticket only, where user story and acceptance criteria is there, we will put the systems design in that description section. Sometimes the developers will put it in the tasks and subtasks. Developers will take care of this. Sometimes if you are doing it as a BA, you will put it in the description section. Again, what is system design? Simple things like a donut chart means that is a system. Data is coming from your
where there will be in the right, left, backers,
etc.
whatever.
All that etc. plus API URL. You have to use this API to get the data points. And what data points exactly? Customer ID, customer phone number, customer CIBIL score, loan account info. So these data points must come from this API URL. So how will an API URL look like? It is actually a URL only. It's an URL only. So this is how it's going to look. It's literally a URL. These things will come under system design. So that's what you'll be adding in the description section. Simple things plus the UI UX, the markup, etc. Everything that you mentioned plus API related info. Simple things like this, right? And these data points I want from this API URL. So this is what you will be adding in the description section in Jira. Or the developers will figure this out and they'll put tasks and stuff based on what model your organization is for. Any questions?
Supposedly a customer is given us a task, given a requirement for a web design. So in that thing, we will
the customer will not give
business,
a requirement
business,
for the
sorry.
web. Now
The
take this
business.
example only, right? The requirements will be like what? In this case, the CIBIL score verification, the collections. What is the business logic for collections? That's how the requirements.
I mean, here only we will also system requirement language. We will just put it in the description section, and developer will start coding it.
Correct. So
Okay.
we will put whether it is a drop down or a radio button.
That thing we
You
when
need
we
a.
used to.
This is what I mean by system design language. Right? You need a drop down with 5 options.
We'll have to write it in descriptive manner in that.
Just
place.
like this. Not we need a drop down. Just drop down options. Something like drop down and then.
Here, everything we write it in Jira, right? We use the tool Jira.
Yeah,
write
everything is in Jira. Correct.
or Azure DevOps, any of the two tools.
Any one the organization will either Jira or Azure DevOps. In my current organization, they are using Jira. Before this, I was with Microsoft, so obviously they were using Azure DevOps TFS. Then before that, I was with State of Texas. They were not even using Jira or Azure DevOps. They were still in caveman's world. They were still using some other tool. I think it is called, not even able to remember the name. They were using PPM for all these activities, and I think Teamforge, something called Teamforge, very old tool that nobody knows what it is, by the way. It's that old, from the 80s, right? And before that, I used to work for US Bank. We were still using Azure DevOps TFS. We were not using Jira. So these were the tools that we were using.
How many years of experience you have, like as a BA?
As a BA, I have 4 or 5 years of experience, 4 to 5 years. And then I worked as a product owner. And then for the last 3 to 4 years, I was working as a project manager. Right now, I'm again working as a product. So I have close to a decade of experience.
Okay.
Okay, so this is how it is done. Any other question?
No. And one more thing, the story points. So basically, these are like intangible. These are the units, right? These are the units which is assigned to the user story. I mean, when we used to say hours, instead of that, you used to say story points. This is like something unit.
Hours and story points are not related. Story points are calculated based on complexity,
volume, effort, and uncertainties. You said.
You should not mix hours and user story points.
So story points, so based on that, how a user story is complex or lengthy, we'll able to judge it.
Yeah, if it is 8 and less, it can be fit into one sprint. More than 8, which is 13, it cannot be fit into
3 weeks, we can complete one particular user story.
Yeah, if it is 8 or less, easily it can be fit into one sprint. If it is 13, you should not. Sometimes they'll just so they slack. They will give a 8 story point as 13, and they'll say we'll finish it in 2 sprints. They will lie like that, developers. Then what you need to say is, no, if you're working as a Scrum Master, you have to say, no, let's break the story down. Let's divide the 2, 8 and 5. We'll divide the story into 2. Tell me what will you be covering in this sprint and what will you be covering in the next sprint. Divide the user story. Change the language in the user story so that I can hold you accountable for this sprint on what you have to do. This is what was happening with when I was working for State of Texas as a project manager. So what they will do is they'll create a story. They'll say we are working on it for 2 sprints. And then after 3 or 4 months, I realized they are not even doing anything for one sprint. They are just sitting there and drinking coffee. I'm not even exaggerating by this. This is a government rule and they are all full-timers. So you cannot go and say anything. And I have a contract restrictions, right? And they are all in their 50s. So it's kind of weird actually. So they say, now if you give the story to them, right? This story, right? Let's say this one Sybil scores that story. They'll give something like 30. So what they will do, one sprint, they will not work anything. They will not do anything. Sprint 2, they'll finish everything. And then they'll say, okay, and then they'll deliver it, right? And this went on to a point where they started doing sprint 3 and all. 3 sprints, they'll be just saying, I'm working on this and they'll keep it. And they'll sit. And I got into trouble because they were doing all this because during audit, they pulled everything up and the management found out. And then I got into trouble. So this is where what you have to say is as a Scrum Master, okay, you are giving 13 story points to this Sybil score star. Great. First of all, why can you justify? Let them lie about it in front of everybody. So many people, they don't like lying in front of everybody because everybody it look very bad. So then that first the story points will come down. Next, okay, they are able to give some genuine justification. Say, let's break this 13 point into, let's do a part 1, part 2. I'm going to divide the story into 2. Let's divide it into 8 and 5. Tell me what are you going to work on in this sprint and next sprint. Based on that, I'll change the use of story 1 language and use of story 2 language. Now, towards the end of that 2 weeks, you will hold them accountable. Did you finish this? Show me what you have done. You can do it during sprint review. It has to come up in front of the business, right? So if it is 13, if it is that big, that is why we break it down so that we can hold the developers accountable so that they cannot say 13 and okay, we'll complete it in 2 sprints. I'll just move it over to the next sprint. They will be sitting down and not doing anything for that entire. And when people get into trouble, they'll only ask the Scrum Master. The developers, they will not ask them. And as a developer, you can find jobs easily compared to anyone else. But that is something else, right?
The story points are given by who? The
development team.
Development team.
Yeah, developers and testers.
Tech lead will assign, right? The
No, everybody from the development and testing.
There is a group of meeting and they will decide.
Which ceremony will they decide?
They'll decide in the sprint planning
and backlog.
Yeah.
So today we covered the sprint cycle.